to Journey of Enlightenment. I am your host, Dr. Roger Gopaul. For the past few weeks, we spent some time examining the various questions that you, the viewers, sent to me regarding Sanatana Dharma or Vedanta, or what we call Hinduism. Hopefully, those questions that you sent were properly answered to your satisfaction. And I do welcome questions every now and again. I will pause our program to just answer some of those questions that you send in. Today, however, we are back in the forest where Shri Ram, Sita and Lakshman reside. Being in exile for 14 years and they roam through the forest, we will now continue to explore, to examine the life of Shri Ram. As most of us know, because the Ramayana is a very familiar story, the king of Lanka at that point in time was Ravan. He was a very powerful king, and kingdoms fell to him. Kings bowed in his presence. Ravan had a sister who also, very much like her brother, wanted whatever she saw desirable to her. She saw Shri Ram in the forest and disguised herself as a very beautiful, very attractive woman. And she went to Shri Ram and she offered herself to him as Princess of Lanka. She went as far as to tell Shri Ram that her beauty matches his, and therefore they were a pair or a match made in heaven. Rama saw through what this wicked woman was trying to do, and he offered his brother Lakshman as a consort if she so desired. Lakshman also saw what Ravan's sister plan was, and he told her, Lakshman said, "I am but Shri Ram's slave. I'm not worthy to marry a woman as beautiful as you." Ravan's sister became very angry, and she told Ram that the reason he did not want to marry her was because of Sita. She went back to the palace and she complained to Ravan. Ravan then went to see who the Sita was and how she looked. He took a very close ally of his kingdom and himself with him. And that ally, who was also a demonic entity, once had some run-ins, some encounters with Shri Ram before and was severely defeated. But this time, they had a plan. Ravan would disguise himself as a sage and approach Sita. And his evil ally would disguise himself as the famous golden deer, the beautiful deer. So, the evil ally took the form of a deer, and when Sita saw the deer, she was marveled. She wanted to have him. So she asked her husband, Shri Ram, to go after the deer. Lakshman and Shri Ram realized that that could not be a deer, for he was so shiny, so beautiful. It had to be a demonic force taking the form of a deer. But Sita wanted that deer. So she sent Shri Ram to fetch the deer, and the deer kept leading Shri Ram deeper and deeper into the forest. Now, Lakshman remained behind in order to protect Sita. But the deer called out in the voice of Shri Ram, tricking Sita into believing that Shri Ram was in some sort of trouble. She then begged Lakshman to leave her and go and rescue her husband. Despite Lakshman's hesitancy, in going, Sita insisted that he leave her and go into the forest. So Lakshman did. Ravan then disguised himself as a sage, and he approached Sita for food. She offered him fruits and water to wash his hands and his feet. The question now is, what does Sita represent in this particular passage? What does Ravan represent in this passage? If we look at this particular passage from the perspective of esoteric psychology or transcendental psychology, let us assume for a minute that Sita represents the mind. What is the mind? The mind is like a bowl, a container, or a pot, or a bucket. If the mind is then, let's say, for simplicity's sake, like a bucket, like any bucket, there would be something of substance that the bucket contains. The mind contains thoughts. So the mind really is the abode of thoughts. However, those thoughts are usually divided in the pair of opposites. Good thoughts, bad thoughts. Pleasure, pain. Happiness, sorrow. Honor, dishonor. So the mind is constantly faced with two forces. We see this also in the Mahabharata, where the battle was between the Kauravas, that represent the negative tendencies of the mind, and the Pandavas, that represents the righteous tendencies of the mind. Sita was in a position where something that was external started influencing the thought processes, Sita herself representing the mind. Now, if we look at the mind, we know that the mind can be easily strayed, easily drawn by anything that is attractive. That attraction can be wealth, fame, or anything that satisfies the mind. Sita saw this deer. That deer represented an illusion, which is the world around us. Nothing is wrong with having popularity. Nothing is wrong with having fame or wealth. That is all fine, once it is done with the intention of righteousness. An illusion is where we believe something to be real when it is not real. When we start treating wealth as the be-all and end-all of our existence, rather than pursuing the deeper meaning of life, which is love, goodness, kindness, compassion. When we start believing that our popularity is our true identity, rather than the identity of a divine self, a divine consciousness, a purity of thought. When we start believing that the impermanent body that we have is our real self, then we are trapped in that state of illusion. Sita saw this illusion and she wanted it. She desired this, and she sent Shri Ram to look for it. Shri Ram himself represents the divine consciousness, the ideal supreme state of being. When we start chasing this illusion, this world of objective materialism, believing that to bring satisfaction, believing that to bring peace, then we distance ourselves from that supreme identity. from that absolute reality. Sita sacrificed her husband, the ideal self. She separated that self temporarily for an illusion, for something that was unreal. Now, when we do so and we separate ourselves from that state of divine consciousness, then we open ourselves to the extremities of the materialistic world. And when I say materialistic, I don't mean house and land and cars and those things. That is just a superficial view of materialism. When I talk about the objective world of materialism, I mean the things that represent adharma, unrighteousness, such as greed, such as ego, such as self-gratification at the expense of others. So Ravan came, who represents those unrighteous tendencies. And the first thing that he did was started playing a mind game with Sita. Now remember, the mind is actually our channel. It transmits for us our thoughts into either righteousness or unrighteousness. It is the pathway for us to connect with our supreme consciousness. Ravan attacked the mind. He started playing with her mind. And we see that all around us. Sita was now in a position where she was unable to know what was right versus wrong. She started compromising what she was forewarned about. We often find that in our very lives. We find that when a friend may, or so-called friend I might say, who may offer us drugs, or who may encourage us to have that one extra drink when we know that we shouldn't, or as simple as to break a traffic light, which is against the law. And they start telling us if we don't, then we don't fit into a modern society. If we don't, we are rejected from our social arrangements. If we don't follow what everyone is doing, then we are societal rejects. They start playing with the mind. If you look at the way advertisers are going about now, they start playing with the mind. So they try putting celebrities who they think you should follow. Be like this one, be like that one, dress like her, dress like him. And we believe that in doing so, we fit in. And we start compromising our own ideals. We start compromising our own sense of righteousness. Sita was now in a position where she was compromising what she knew to be right and playing right into the hands of ego, of hatred, of bitterness, which Ravan represented. Sita was then trapped. She was then taken away. Every time that the mind removes itself from that perpetual state of consciousness, from being aware of our real self, we are easily taken away into this world of illusion, into this world of the unreal. Let's bring this back to modern day life. We have seen in the boardroom, we have seen in the classroom, we have even seen in our courtroom where too many of us have started compromising what is righteous, what is good, what we know to be honorable. And then we ask ourselves the question, why is this world in such a chaos? Why are we going down such a precipice in the world of morality? Is there any way to return to a society that is conscious of each other? A society where we are our brother's keepers. A society where we will take care and protect our environment. Can we return to that world? And the answer is that we can only return to such a world if we first return to our own self and reconnect the mind to that state of godliness. We can only rescue our world if we reconnect the mind into that state of divine consciousness. What exactly is this state of divine consciousness? Consciousness exists all around us, in space, in time, in matter. But consciousness transcends space, time, and matter. It is the absolute essence of existence itself. It is the purest and absolute awareness. That is consciousness. How do we return to this form of consciousness? There is no answer in this world for peace via treaties or broad discussions. No. That would only happen first if each one of us allow ourselves to go within, discover our real nature, become the ideal self. What is that ideal self? Happiness, inner peace, love, joy, compassion. That is the ideal self. Without knowing who you are, who I am, we are forever lost. And the Ravans of this world, the negative tendencies and influences of this world will easily take hold of us unless we are able to go within ourselves and hold on to, identify with, become and be that state of pure goodness, righteousness, love, compassion, kindness, the very nature of divine consciousness. The Ramayana further tells us that Ravan took Sita away. She was lost for now. Let us protect our minds from being lost. If we know that we are venturing down a path where we are confused about our own identities, believing ourselves to be something that is unreal, such as, I am the role that I play. No. I am the rank that I have. No. I am the resources that I control. No. They are all temporary assets. We are much more. That is the non-self. The non-self being the flesh, the mind. The real self is that divine awareness, that divine consciousness that we are. May we forever hold on to that idea, to that ideal, never separating the mind from that higher state of consciousness. Once we do, then the Ravans of this world, the negative influences and forces, have no power over us. I end today's session by saying thank you once again for joining me in Journey of Enlightenment.